So Pam, Vice Chairman of the Supporters Trust.
Yeah.
First and foremost, give us an idea of your background, how you first started to support Pompey, how long, and etc., etc.
My first game was February the 20th, 1960. A friend of my dad's was staying and he wanted to see Dennis Law, who was then playing for playing for Huddersfield. So we came down to that and I just got completely hooked by the whole atmosphere and been coming down ever since. But my mum had gone as a child with my grandparents, so, it's sort of a real family thing. I just loved the atmosphere.
And it's fair to say you're a familiar figure around Fratton Park. People will see you on the coaches going away, on the trust bus here, and all around doing various bits and pieces. Yes,
I do get involved in quite a lot. I quite often travel with Paul Banks, the Supporters Club coach, to away matches. Other times I go by train or car. And yes, we're calling it the Pompey Bus now because it's used by so many aspects of the Pompey community. But we do that on every Saturday home match. I'm there. Johnny Ertle's quite often there these days since he joined the board. It's just a meeting place where people can join the trust, renew their memberships. Some people want to ask questions, so it performs quite a useful function as being the place where people can meet the trust face to face.
And the Supporters Trust, so how did you become involved in that?
Well, when things were going horribly wrong in 2009, obviously the late Ken Malley was a really good friend of mine, and him and a few others. I knew Barry Dewing had been talking about having a Supporters Trust at Pompey for many years. And we had a big meeting at the Rifle Club, which I volunteered for the steering group at, and I've been on there ever since. I've been re-elected every time I've stood.
So it's fair to say that you've been there from the start?
Yeah, I think there's only myself and Joe Collins, who's Assistant Secretary and Legal Advisor. I think we're the only two from those original days.
From that very first meeting, did you ever think that one day you'd be sitting here now talking about it in this current state of affairs?
No, never. No, I mean, our original ambition was to get a supporter representative on the trust board, on the club board, to try very hard to push for that. And I remember the board meeting when, the guys that became the bid team, Mick Williams, Mark Trapani and Ashley, said, "Oh, well, we've decided what we're going to do. We're going to buy the club." We were all flabbergasted, but they came up with a plan and it worked. And we did, despite a lot of people saying we wouldn't.
Yeah, and how proud a moment was that on those court steps?
Very, very proud. Yeah, I think.
So now you've got the grand title of Vice Chairman. Tell us a bit of what that means and what functions you fulfil.
Well, basically, it's really supporting Ashley Brown, who's the chair, obviously deputising for him if he's not there, and supporting all the ongoing things that the Trust's trying to do. We need to increase our membership. We need to involve the youth group again, which is something Ken Malley had been working on. So they're all things that we do need to do.
You can't go past without mentioning Ken Malley, and of course he was a good friend of yours. What impact did it have, his death, on not just you but the Trust itself?
It had a great impact on me. Obviously he was someone I would ring up regularly for advice, to talk to. He'd been a good friend of mine for many years. I'm trying with yourself, obviously, in continuing the away fans information, which is something he had a very strong belief in supporters' rights to be treated as they would any other leisure activity. And it had a huge impact. We'd had a very bad year, and that was the culmination of it, and it really knocked us back because we didn't. Yeah. We knew his health hadn't been good for a while, partly due to some of the stresses he'd been under as chair, but it really did knock us all back.
Yeah, because you also knew him through work with England as well.
Yes, funnily enough, although we're both long-term Pompey supporters, I actually met him through the Football Supporters Federation.
Right.
and we realised we were both Pompey supporters, and our friendship went on from there. But he was involved with the England fans embassies, which the FSF runs, and they go to every England away game. They provide the Free Lions magazine, which has all local information and all that, and a few sort of words of translation, that sort of thing. And they have a fans embassy present. They have all sorts of things, that people have lost their passports, people have booked something, accommodation, they turn up and it's not in existence. You know, they help all those kinds of problems as well. So he was been involved in that for many years. And sadly, when he was running it down, and he'd hoped to do France next summer as a fan. So sadly, he missed out on that.
Yeah. Do you find that because of all that work, that football fans are treated slightly better now than they used to be?
They are better, yes. I think things like stewarding in general have improved. We're treated in a much friendlier way. Obviously, being in lower divisions now, that is much better anyway, because everything's much more relaxed than it is in the Premier League. So I think it has. I mean, it's partly due to the work of and the behaviour of England fans away is completely different from how it would have been a long time ago. So yes, but there is still a long way to go. You know, in an attitude that is still there in some, but I think in general it's improved slightly. Yes.
Coming back to the trust, you speak of some of the challenges, such as increasing membership. How do you do that?
That's something we're working on, actually, as to what reasons we give people to join the trust. I mean, some people think now everything's all right, they don't need to join. But that's the only funding that the trust has. You know, any money we collected for share money, that went to the club. That's not our money, that was money for buying the club. So that's our only income for running the trust. I would like to see us set up, in the early days we did what we called the word now, you know, we went to different places. We had one at Petersfield, one at Havant, so people could come along and talk to us, and that's when we encourage people to join the share scheme. So I'd like to see that happening again, and going round to a few places to meet fans and talk to them, explain what the trust does. But obviously we've got to look for a new direction. You know, our whole reason to be was to get the club. That's sorted. So we've got to look at ourselves and find a reason for our existence. To me, it should be as a kind of governance of how the club is run, because you have to look for the future. It's not just the people that are there now that we know are fine. It's looking 30, 40 years' time. When we're all gone, we want to try and find a way of making sure that the club can never go back to what happened in the last few years, and obviously in the past as well. People talk about what they call the golden share, which can try and find a way of making sure that we can always have the final say on certain issues, like which at the moment, yes, we have. There has to be a majority, a huge majority, but I think it's 75% to sell the club outright. And I know there are people who think that would be good, but it would have to be looked at as to who it was that was buying it. And as I say, most of us aren't that young that are involved, and one day it won't be us, and we need to find a way of safeguarding this club for future generations.
It's not even essentially really who you sell it to next, it's who that could be sold on to and further down the chain. Yes,
that is the problem, is to how much control you can have over that for the future. I'm not sure that you probably can that far ahead, you know, once it's been sold on a few times. But that is a worry, that you don't want to go back to what we had.
And all the time, I suppose you're in League 2 or League 1, the trust can sail along and be quite happy. It's when you come to the Championship that the extra sort of money starts to hit you, and then you need much more capital.
Well, the club as it is sustainable, and it's been run financially in a very, very good way. But yes, you're right. I mean, every time if we do get promotion, everything's going to start going up, isn't it? The wages and all that sort of thing.
Expectations, dare I say it?
Yes. And yes, as we go up, if we do go up higher, probably it's sustainable up to the championship, but then you're going to have to look at other ways of funding. And obviously the other thing that needs doing is the redevelopment of Fratton Park, which Mike Saunders, who's the architect on the Trust Board, is looking at the moment, and in general discussion, and will at sometime in the not too distant future be going into fans consultation about that.
It's not always been smooth for the Trust, and it never was going to be once all the euphoria had died down. Have the Trust actually learned from some of the problems they've had and encountered in the last 2 years?
Yes, I think we have. I'm not going to go into all they're well documented, the various problems that occurred, which we tried to deal with in the way we thought right at the time. And it was actually, we recently had an audit by a group of people on the Trust and its workings, which most of the recommendations we accepted. But it did say in there that people have to be aware that everyone on the Trust Board is a volunteer. Yeah. We don't get paid for it. We do it in our own time. And that some of the criticism we've received has been very demoralising as a board. Yeah. And you start wondering why you're sitting there doing it. And as I say, you become suspicious of people and their motives, which isn't necessarily correct, but that's what the experience teaches us.
Is it a bit about those that put their head above the parapet and all that?
Yes, to be honest, yes. Personally, I find that incredibly annoying that some of the worst critics, if asked to help, or if you were to say, that's actually quite a good suggestion, would you like to come and help with it? Probably wouldn't, the ones that shout loudest. On the other hand, there are genuine people who have said they will come and help if we ask them to do something. So I'm not criticising everybody, because there are, I know, people who would like to volunteer. And that is, again, something that we're looking at, is how we could utilise people who would like to volunteer to help.
I'm sure you won't mind me saying that you're a lady of leisure these days. How long, health staying, would you like to see yourself in some position on the Trust?
I've been retired for a few years now, yes. It doesn't feel like it sometimes. I sometimes say, when do you retire from being retired? I don't know, probably another few years. I've been involved in football politics for a long time. That's to be honest, why I started was to get in, because I firmly believe in reintroduction of safe standing areas. It's why I really got involved, and I'm still involved with the Football Supporters Southern Division. I'm the secretary for that. But it would be strange not to just go to a match without sort of looking around, especially at away matches, making sure the supporters are being treated okay and all that sort of thing.
You preempted almost the next question, because wouldn't it be nice to go to football devoid of all the politics and just enjoy a game? Do you ever foresee that day coming?
It would be nice. I'm not sure that it would happen after all these years, but yes, it would be nice, yeah. But then, yes. Or not to dash in at the last minute because I've been busy doing something else, yeah. Which is usually what happens at home matches. Away matches are different. I suppose I relax and enjoy them a bit more, yeah.
Well, as long as you're enjoying it, it's great, and long may you enjoy it, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Johnny.